In today's video, I want to run you through my experience starting a tomato farm in Nigeria, what I've been through, what I've experienced, where I'm currently at. I am going to be running you through step by step how I started, where I'm currently at, and where we're headed to. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that I've done a couple of businesses. I have a 9 to 5. I have a regular job, and also I have other businesses, but only recently I started trying out my hand in tomato farming. But mind you, I have done this previously before. I've been into poultry farming, birds, fishery, even farming. But I have never actually done it myself, hand on. I've only worked with companies, I've worked with family members who had farms and all. And this time around, I'm doing it myself. And if you're that person and you want to learn how to actually go about your tomato farm, then this video is for you, because I am not just going to be telling you, I'm not just going to be standing in an established farm and be telling you, oh, I did this and I did that. No, I'm going to be showing you. In this video, you see clips of where we currently are. We're currently at the nursery stage and the inception stage. So I'm going to be running you through. I figured that initially, I thought about actually creating this video when I'm done, when the farm is all set and running. But I figured that some people would like to know the process, right? How you started, and it would be interesting that you carry people along from beginning to the end. So I'm going to tell you what you would need to actually start a tomato farm. Maybe maybe a spraying can, but that's a joke, right? I'm going to be running you through everything you need, what I needed, and how I was able to get all of this, and where I'm currently at. Now, the first thing you would need if you're starting a tomato farm is actually time. Now, like I said earlier on, I have a 9 to 5 job, I have other businesses, but how am I able to create time for tomato farming? Now, the question is, a lot of people might be begging the question, I have a job, a 9 to 5, so how do I go about tomato farm? Can I actually farm? Yes, you can. Also, some people might even say, I am a student and I really want to go into tomato farming. Can I do that? Yes. A stay-at-home mom, even better. Now, I actually think about this and I'm like, I wish I actually knew what I knew now when I was in the university. That's like some 7, 8 years ago, right? But I didn't. So you can actually create time for it. The most important thing when you're actually going through your tomato farm is the inception stage, which is the first 21 days during the nursery, breathing. You need to be very much available. You need to be there. Now, the question of if you would need an extra hand is all borders down on how far you want to go, like the expanse you want to farm and how big you want to go. But primarily, what you need is time. And if you're a 9 to 5 worker, you can actually do that. If you have time, you go in the morning, early hours of the day, and then you'll be able to revisit your farm again in the evening. The second thing you would need is land. Now, land is very, very important. As you can see on the video, you can see it's displaying the land I am currently using. It's about a 14 plot of land. Land is very important, but when trying to get the land, one thing that you need to factor in is very important. You need to factor in how far you want to go, your scalability. If you wanted to go big, then you might have to be getting a land that is outside town, not so much in the urban area. And then when this is the case, there are a couple of things that you need to factor in. One is accessibility, right? The no road network, is it motorable? Is it accessible? Another thing you need to factor in is transportation. What means of transport would you be using to get there? Now, like I said earlier, money is very important in agriculture. So you must be able to consider how much money you have right now and how much money you're willing to invest in it. So if you don't have so much money, transport might be cost effective because you might have to be going and coming back almost every day. And if you have to be paying transportation to go and come back every day, I doubt if you might be able to get so much. By the end of the day, you might be able to make so much from it when you do your mathematics properly, right? So if you think you don't have so much money right now, transportation is something you might factor in. So you might want to get a farm that is relatively closer to you. And in this case, usually what I advise people to do is that there are so many lands around you that have not been built yet. People have lands that have not been built yet. So you might need to factor in that. Instead of thinking of, getting one land, 1 10 plot, 1 5 plot outside of town, you might just get the next 1 plot, 2 plots. Some people have farmlands, or rather, properties around you that have not been built, so you might want to leverage them. Speak to these people. Now, this video is literally the best video you would see online about starting an agricultural business, right? So you're just going to get to these people, speak to them. Oh, I need this land for such a period of time. And once you start, I promise you, some people have lands that they have zero plan of using in the next 5 years. So you'll be shocked. You might think they want to use it. So if you don't have so much capital, then that is the best option for you when talking about land in order to save costs for transportation. But if you're thinking about getting land outside, then you might have to factor in that. Like I said, things you might have to factor in. I started with accessibility, right? The second, accessibility, is it motorable? Because eventually you might have to bring out your farm produce from your farm, right? For me, I've been able to get a land that is quite accessible. You can see currently in the video that is in the various videos they're playing at different intervals, the accessibility and all that stuff. However, we had some issues. There is some part of the land that is not accessible. You can see me walking barefooted. That day, this was a Sunday, I closed from church and I had to visit my farm. And I went, I did not go alone. Yeah, you can see in the video. So I had to park my car somewhere and walk in. And it rained that day. I had to give out my shoe to the person making this video, right? So I had to walk barefooted. But there is actually a road that leads down to the farm, but it's just bad. It's just bad at some point that we need to fix. However, on bike, you can actually drive down to the farm on bike when you're on bike. So eventually I had to get a motorbike. You can see that also displayed on the screen. I had to get a motorbike, which is actually easy because the road, even the third road from the city down to where my farm is not so good. A lot of potholes. So if you're driving on bike, it's faster. On car is somewhere around 45 minutes, but on bike is 16 minutes. So I just figured I'm a busy person. I have so much to do with time. So I might just have to find a faster means of transportation. But again, this is when you're going large scale, right? Would mean that you probably have capital and all that. Another thing that you need to factor in is security, right? When trying to get a land, you might have to ask people around, what's up with this land? How has this land been over the course of so for my land, actually, I was able to ask people around, what is the situation of this place, herdsmen, and I realized that when I walk through from the road down to my farm, there are other farms there. The people farm there and all that, and interestingly, they farm corn and the likes, groundnuts, beans and all that and the likes. And I see a path where cows pass, the herdsmen pass. However, they never really encroach people's land. And I ask questions. So what they do is that they set this fence using bamboo, right? I don't have a picture of that, but maybe subsequently I'll capture a picture of that and show it to you, right? And also, if you're going large scale, very large scale, you might not be able to eventually do a fence. So one of the things I learned recently from a mentor is that you could actually get a security staff, which is depending on the scale you're going, you might just get to pay these people maybe 30,000-40,000 naira every month, and you can just have two people. They're vigilantes. You can hire these vigilantes. Two will be on guard during the day, two would be on guard in the evening. Trust me, whatever it is you pay the security people is nothing compared to the destruction that you might have to endure eventually. So for me, what I'm trying to employ right now is a fence system because we're currently doing around 15 plots of land. So that's not so much, though we're looking at scaling it to about 22 plots of land, getting more land to add to it around the place. But again, that's not so much of land to be hiring a security and all that. So what we're trying to do is a fence. You might start speaking about getting a security staff to help you if you're trying to get, like, say 150 plots and above, which means you're going way large scale. And you would agree with me that 50 plot of land is such a huge land that you might not be able to, cover in the shortest time. So some destruction might be happening at one end and you wouldn't know about it. But if you have security operatives around the farm, then that helps you. The next thing I actually thought about that I needed when I was documenting it, like I said, the first thing was I figured I needed time, so I found ways to create time for myself, got a means of transportation that is easy. The second thing was land, which I eventually got, though, like I didn't say that earlier on, but my land is actually rented. I rented my land, right? The next thing is water. Now, this water part is linked to the first thing, which is land, right? Now, for you to actually secure water is literally the bedrock of farming, because you're farming tomato, chances are that you're most likely doing mechanized farming, which means you would need water for irrigation and all that. You won't depend on rainfall, right? So you need water. Now, one of the things people say when you're trying to get a land is get a land that is close to a water passage, a waterway, a stream, and all that stuff. Now, how was I able to do that? So what I figured was that you might have to do two things: either dig a well, find a land that is close to water, or if you are farming close to the urban area, maybe you're doing last small scale, then there should be some well that is around your neighborhood that you can fetch water from and all that stuff. Yeah. So that being said, for me, what did I do? Yesterday, only yesterday, I got in people from the north, from Kano precisely, to come help drill the floor. You can see that in the video. That's what they're currently doing in the video. They did this manual drilling. They do this manual drilling in the north where they drill into the ground, and then they can get water. So you can bury pipes within it and then have a pumping machine that pumps water off this pipe. It's like a borehole, but this is manual, right? So I thought about that. Now the reason why I thought about that option was because if you're digging a well, you dig a well in a particular spot, and that's about it. So if anything happens and that well dries up, or there's no so much, you have to dig another well. I was speaking to a friend of mine. She dug her well for 250K as at January this year. This video is made. This video was made in October, 8th of October precisely, 2024. So she dug her well, and she paid 250,000 naira, and eventually what happened was that the well was not functioning as it should at optimum, so she had to dig another well. That's like 250K times 2, that's like 500K, half a million naira. So you must really have a very deep pocket for you to be able to do that. If you're starting up, you don't have that, all of that luxury. So what I thought about was that I could actually get these people drill, because you can drill into the ground and then get a water outlet. It's almost like a well. The difference is that this is not so large. You don't have to sink in rings. You just drill into the floor, put your pipes in, and you get what drill into the ground rather, put your pipes in and get water. And then you can drill in different locations. So if there's no water in this, there will be water in this. If there's no water in this, there will be water in the other. However, unfortunately, they came in yesterday from all the way from the Kanu. I paid their transportation and everything, and then they came, drilled different places in the land, and realized that the land has stones underneath it, so they can't go past it because they're doing it manually. It was painful. I spent a lot of money. I spent close to, only on transportation, I think bottom line, I spent close to 100,000 bringing them down, because of course the cost of fuel and everything. But again, good thing was that yesterday I was able to discover water in my land. So what we actually found out yesterday, because you know how these things are, one door closes, another open. Whilst we were leaving the farm with these people, I met this guy who apparently is a manager to a farm that is just behind my farm. So they're also projecting a tomato farm. So I engaged him in a conversation. One thing you must understand with agriculture is that it's the sky is big enough. So you must be open to collaboration. You must be open to communicating with people. If you have farmers around you, discuss with them, because they know the area, they know the terrain. There are things you might never know. There are places you might not be able to go to that they would be able to go to and find solutions for you. Yeah, so we were able to, I spoke to him, and he told me, actually, there is a stream in my farm. So I'm like, really? So we went there. You can see currently the stream rolling. That's that story for another day. But long story short was that we're not able to drill into the floor, we're into the ground, and then we finally discovered that there's actually a stream, not so far, more like 10 minutes walk from the farm. And that is great, 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 great news, right? I'm going to be walking you down what we do eventually. So what we are planning to do, eventually, we also discovered that somewhere in my farm, there is actually a spring, which means water popping up from the ground. There's a way it is. I'm going to make a video of it next time that I go to the farm, maybe tomorrow, and then it's going to be in my next video. If you're watching up on this time, this is where you might have to hit on the subscribe button and the notification button, so that every time I drop a video showing you my progress report, you will be the first to get notified. So what we're trying to do with the water is we'll dig a reservoir, right? A reservoir is like a water place, like you just dig it out and water just stores there. So when we need water, we'll just dump our pipe there and use the pumping machine to pump water from that. So we'll do that till like early next year, January and February, where there is dry season. And then if the water is sustainable up until if the spring is sustainable down till that time, then we'll keep to that. But if it's not, then we might have to dig a well, because even if you're trying to dig a well, this is not the best time to dig a well, because it's the rainy season right here in the southern part of Nigeria. and it's not the best time to dig a well, because you can dig a well and you realize that there is water, and then when it's dry season there's no water because there's so much water on the ground right now. So we'd wait till that time to dig our water. Another thing that you would need is a staff. Depending on the scale, if you're doing large scale, you will need a farm, but if you're doing small scale like a plot or two, I won't advise for you to get a staff. You can actually handle that yourself. All you have to do is to hire people. What you need is to your nursery, your ridges. So for you to dig for you to have your ridges, you can just hire a day worker. In 1 day, 2 days, they are done doing the ridges, and you have your ridges. The next thing you would need is to just have your temporary nursery where you nurse, and that's very simple. You can just come in the morning and water, not so much, yeah. Then you get a plumber to actually do the reticulation. Reticulation is the pipes that is fixed because it's irrigation farming, so you need water every time. You can see the pictures on the display. So you do that if you're doing small scale, and if you're doing large scale, then you would need a staff. For me, I got a staff from Not. Matter of fact, I'm actually working on getting about 2 more staffs or 3 more staffs, so they would make them like 3, 4, 5 people that are working for me, because we're doing small scale this time around. We're doing like 4 or 5 plots, but next year in, let's say, January, February, we're working on doing somewhere around 15 plots of land. So we're going large scale. So for you to go large scale, you actually need workers, you need hands. You can't do it yourself. Mind you, I have other things. Now, if you're thinking about a worker, very importantly, one other thing you would need is accommodation. So this was a struggle for me actually, because there was difficulty getting accommodation in the place. Like I said, it's not so urban, it's a local environment. So every house, the ones you were getting are significantly very far from the farm. So you have to get a bike for your workers. And if you're getting a bike for your workers, meaning you have to be fueling every day. Do not forget that the pumping machine that you'll be using to actually water your plant morning and evening, eventually you would have to be buying fuel, and with the prices of fuel right now, it's something else. So one thing with it, agriculture, so if you have a deep pocket, that does not mean you just throw money around here and there. You have to be very calculative. Is this going to be beneficial in the long run? You can be done farming and then you see that, okay, you made 3 million, you made 5 million naira and all that stuff. But by the time you do proper calculation, you realize that you probably made only 500,000 or 400,000 based off of what is left out of what you've spent. And it's not worth it after spending like 4 months of your life, making 300,000, it's not worth it at all. So yeah, so transportation was a factor. So what I eventually did was I built a tent in the farm. So you can see me walking you through. There's a video there that's showing the tent when it started, and where we currently are at the tent. So the tent is currently completed and the staff is here. So eventually, if you have 3, 4, 5 staff, they'll be able to stay there, and that offers you some form of leverage, which is one, security. The staff are on the farm, so there's like a subtle security in the farm, and you get to meet them every time. You don't come to your farm and you're having to go to their house and look for them. No, they are on ground every time. So when you come, they are there. Your working equipment is safe, because by the time they are done working, all they have to do is to bring it back to the tent, and then that's where they sleep. So it's literally safe. So yeah, that's where we are right now. The next thing we will be doing is our nursery farm before the end of this week. This video was made on Tuesday. Before the end of this week, we will start our nursery. Nursery takes 21 days actually to nurse. So in 21 days, we'll be able to have dug our reservoir, and we'll be able to have done our ridges. 21 days is a lot of time. So instead of waiting to do all that, we'll just go on to start we have enough water around to actually water our nursery within the time frame that it is required, 21 days. So whilst we're doing that for 21 days, we're digging our reservoir and we're making our ridges. I would walk you through everything. So all you have to do is to hit on the subscribe button, like this video, and actually share so that people would get to see, and this is the right place for you to be. Now, it's very important for me to say this. Agriculture is very, very profitable. Now, estimation is that if for a plot of land, you should be able to make get somewhere around 60 crates of tomato. Now, 60 crates of tomato in high season, let's say at the May, June season, is usually sold for somewhere at least minimum of 30,000 naira, 35,000 naira. You can do the math. And in a season like this, not so much of a high season, it's usually around 15,000. But when you do the math, it's still worth it, right? Because the starting in capital is actually much. Investment is much when you start, especially if you're going large scale. But once you've been able to set up all the systems, all the structure, you don't need to spend so much. All you need to spend money on going forward will be fertilizer and buying fuel to water your plant and pay your workers. That's basically it. You've been able to do your reservoir or your, well, you've been able to buy all your machines, so you don't buy going forward. So if you ask me, agriculture is quite profitable. And for someone like me who is in digital space, I have a YouTube channel, I have digital businesses, I have a 9 to 5. For me to still see that agriculture is nice and I'm giving it a try, then you must believe that it actually works. And that's something you must be doing. And to do that, you need knowledge. And to get knowledge, you might need to tag along someone like me who would show you the ropes. See you in my next video. Bye.